Hi, I'm Tim from Marathon Mates. In this episode, we're going to turn things up a bit and talk about all things about summer running and training in the heat. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying RuNR, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Flying RuNR. It's our 20th episode. Tony, I think when we started this podcast series, you said that the average podcast length was about 10 episodes long. So we've doubled that. So we're doing really well. Good work, guys. And for everyone out there, we're going to keep on going for a little while yet anyway. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about training in the summer months. It's summertime here in the Southern Hemisphere, and we're going to crank things up and talk about all things running in the heat. So don't sweat it out. We've got you covered this summer. I had to throw the tip in this, the joke in there. But also, in addition to talking about fun running in summer, we've got a special little treat for you all at the end of this episode, so stay tuned. But before we start to talk about hot weather running, it's good as always to see my marathon mates here on the screen and to talk with them tonight. So Tony, Tara, how are you both going? And welcome.
Thanks, Tim. I'll let you go first, Tara. You'll have more things to talk about.
I'm not sure about that. Tim and I did Kedron Park Run. We did our normal training during the week. I wasn't feeling 100% still from last weekend where I sort of did a lot of walking. So during the week, I did a bit more walking and didn't really run again until Park Run on Saturday. Did Kedron Park Run, which was great, nice flat course. And Sunday we did our long run again. So that was a 21K. Nothing fast, just it was too hot. But a lot faster than the week before. So yeah, getting there slowly. What about you, Tony? How's that ankle?
Well, as you know, I got I had an MRI scan done on it on Friday, and after I had the MRI, the person doing it, the good folk down at Annalee Q Scan said, I think we need to x-ray that. I think that you've got a fracture. So I said, you beauty, that's awesome. I'm so excited for that. So then we got it x-rayed, and the lady confirmed to me that there was a fracture, and so suggested I go straight to the hospital and get it put into a moon boot. And I was a little bit all over the place, to be honest, because being in a moon boot where I work at the moment is just not possible. I for those that don't know, I work in a food production plant as a leadership coach, and I go into production all the time. And when you go into production, you've got to take your shoes off, you've got to put the right gear on, all that sort of stuff, as you'd imagine, with cleanliness and safety and food safety standards. So I just wouldn't be able to do that with a moon boot. So I had a good chat with my physio, who was the one that referred me, and we basically I'm in a bit more of a tighter brace on the ankle, but not a moon boot, and it's actually not feeling too bad. So we're 4 weeks into the healing cycle, maybe another 2 weeks, and I might be able to put a little bit more load on it. But at the moment, just really casual. I did my first exercise bike indoors this morning, and to be honest, that just bores me to death. But I need to be doing something. Sharon's training's going well. She's training with Tim, and I think she got into the 8K category on the weekend. She's been slow coming back from both marathons, but she's starting to feel really good, but dominated by the heat. Yeah. You know, both of them, when they got back to the car, were just sweaty as. So it's a really good time for our segment tonight, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I know that our long run, I always have my Camelback hydration pack with me, and I put about 1.5 litres of water in it for a half marathon. Normally, I come back with a fair chunk of that. The whole entire thing was gone, plus my 500 ml bottle of electrolytes. So it was a very, very warm day.
Yeah,
Very
I don't know
much
what's worse. We've got some friends in Ireland, Northern Ireland, who were talking about running parkrun in 3 degrees on Saturdays. So I don't know if you want the really, really cold or the really, really hot and sweaty. I think I
just
prefer hot and sweaty.
somewhere in the middle would be perfect, wouldn't it? So
That's it. That's it. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for the update this week. So let's get to the news, Tony. Thanks for that, Tony. So, Tara, we're going to kick things off with you. So, what's happening in this week's news?
Excellent. Thanks, Tim. I hope I don't get any of those names. So, so the New York City Marathon stats have come out this week, and aren't they impressive? So we had 51,933 starters and 51,338 finishes. So close to 100%. We had a 98.9% completion rate. Only 531 of the runners in the field failed to finish. So that's like 1%.
Ridiculously awesome, I reckon.
Yeah, it is. And there's so many reasons for that, I guess. But one of the really big ones is that whole concept of the final finishes. And, you know, it was interesting. I was listening to Marathon Talk, the Abbott's World Majors marathon podcast that they do. And from what was being said is that they had all 6 race directors there at New York for the majors, and they were having a panel discussion. And they actually all were in awe of the New York Marathon and the final finishes, the way they treat the final finishes. I don't think that's ever going to change the way Boston or some of those other tough ones do their run their marathons. But, you know, to be able to have pretty much that open-ended time zone almost to complete your marathon, I think that adds a real difference to what you see in the other marathons.
It's definitely an inclusive marathon for everyone who's from the fastest to the slowest. Everyone's included in that marathon, which is the best part for anyone who wants to try a marathon as well. That's a good one to probably start with because it doesn't have a finish time, and you've got all those crowd of people just pushing you along. So yeah. So we have 28,501 were men, so 55% of them were men. 22,807 were female, so 44%. 94 finishes were non-binary, so less than 1%. We had 16,748 international finishes, 148 countries that were represented.
Wow.
And yeah, no, not bad, is it? Like that's like almost every country.
Well, there's 220, I think, countries roughly in the world. So
there's a lot that can't get there at the present point in time with what's going on. So, and we had all 50 states of United States, all 50 of them, plus Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico and Guam were represented. Out of our Australian runners, we had 820 of them, 424 men, 394 women, and one of ours were non-binary. So that's good. Yeah.
820 is huge for an Australian contingent of runners. It just shows you how big that event is to Australians. So I would say it's the biggest marathon outside of Australia for Australians to travel to.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to see the streaming numbers too. How many people actually watched the stream live on KO? I think it was on overnight. So that would also indicate what a coveted event the New York Marathon is.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, those numbers are seriously impressive, but my favourite stat of the whole entire marathon was Betty Clark of Canada. She was the last person home, and she is 68 years of age. She completed the full marathon in a time of 13 hours, 11 minutes and 48 seconds.
Wow.
So her half marathon was 5 hours 36 and averaged a pace of 18 minutes and 47 seconds per kilometre. That's
Wow.
like that's just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really in awe of her, because to be out there for that long is tough on the body. It's a serious effort to stay upright and moving for 13 hours at that pace would not be easy, especially on a hard road. So yeah.
So it shows lots of guts there and
Absolutely.
determination to get it done. I reckon they're the things that need to be applauded. I couldn't imagine doing anything for 13 hours apart from sleeping or something occasionally when I've got a seriously bad hangover. But
or having to get on a flight to go to a
going overseas.
Yeah.
But 13 hours on that course, logging it out for 18 minutes, 18 and a half, almost 19-minute kilometers. She's done phenomenally well.
And considering she would have been in the last wave, no doubt, kicking off at 11 o'clock, that's like almost a midnight finish. So amazing.
And looking at the footage, there was still a lot of people there to cheer her on at the end as well, which is I love that about the New York Marathon, how they have the finishers party, I think you said it was.
Yeah, the final finishers party. It's definitely, it's definitely on my list. So for next year, I just got to make sure Sharon and I just have to make sure that we finish in enough time to get back to the hotel, get a shower, and then head down to go to the Travelling Fit celebration, drink, and then head down. So
I think you'll be able to do that if 13 hours is the time this year.
I think the most people probably are in that 8 or 9 hour category. So that's definitely something. But also interesting at the New York Marathon, one of the first Downs syndrome people to complete a marathon also occurred, and Kaylee Williamson completed the marathon, the New York Marathon, with Down syndrome. And I think that's just, once again, just another great story. From what I understand, I don't know a great deal about Down syndrome, but apparently they have lower muscle tone. And I just think that's amazing, and just another great story. There's so many feel-good stories that come out of New York every year.
We saw the first guy ever to do an Ironman, a Down syndrome Ironman guy. We saw him in Tokyo doing the marathon there as well. And he was amazing when he ran past. He was having a good chat to us. He was happy. I think he did Boston as well last year. So he's done Boston and Tokyo and an Ironman as well.
Wow.
And he's just incredible.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Now, I do have to, as you know, I listened back to the tapes, and I listened to it with a bit of to see what we can do better. And Mr. Tim Ellis put a tip out to watch out for Cam Levin on the New York Marathon. And that was okay for the first 15K, because I think Cam was in the lead pack and was doing quite well. And, and fair comment here is that it wasn't just Tim that was saying, look out for him. He was highly rated and highly regarded. And there was a lot of people saying he was going to do really well. But ultimately, he stepped off the course at 20K. Was a DNF, and the reason being for that was he felt unwell at the start and things just didn't improve. And he was pretty adamant that he wasn't injured. I suppose once you are struggling with something that's obviously not right with you and you're running with the lead pack, that's giving you some adrenaline and some motivation. But the minute you start to drop off that, you're going, yeah, there's probably better places for me to be right now. And he made that choice. So bad luck to Cam. And but I do expect to see a lot more of him in the marathon world because there are big things being noted for him. So,
but he's done the smart thing and listened to his body and not pushed it so that he can continue to race at a further date, which is more important than pushing through.
And 20Ks is probably where the fee kicks in for the appearance money, but that's just me.
Let's not make up.
No, they do. In order to get their appearance money, the elites will have to do so many kilometres in order to earn it. So you probably find he ran to 20Ks just to get the accommodation and appearance money paid for. But anyway, he's if you don't know much about Cameron Levin from Canada, go look him up. Go look at his YouTube videos. He is, as Tony said, somebody to watch going forward. But having said all that, that's New York done and dusted for another year, and next year we'll be there, and we can't wait. But last week, Tony, you talked about the Athens Authentic Marathon.
Yeah.
I think I talked about it, and I talked about the Spartans, and then Kim talked about the Persians, and we know it's the Persians. But that was run and done over the weekend. Do you have any idea how the event went?
Well, actually, it's interesting because there's been a little bit of social media in and around the Athens Authentic. So I don't know whether it was me looking for it or mentioning it, but all of a sudden I've been inundated. Apparently, it was a hot, hilly, and tough course. So that may change my bucket list status on the Athens Marathon, but we'll see how we go. But yeah, it has been run and won, and Edwin Kiptu from Kenya was the winner in 2 hours and 10 minutes and 34.34. Second was another Kenyan with Ronzes Lokatam Kilimo at 2:12:36, and Rwandan Felician Malhitari.
Have you been practicing these names?
2:12:36. So for a hot and hilly course, 2:10. Yeah, I mean they're not bad times. In the ladies, we had a Moroccan that actually won it, a lady by the name of Sukana Atanani.
I'll give you that one.
2:31:52. Caroline Chepkwony from Kenya was the runner-up at 2:32:19. And Gloria, we had our first Greek athlete with Gloria, and this is the hardest name to say, Privilegio, at 2:43. She was in third place. But from all reports, the medals looked amazing. They finished inside the old Olympic Stadium, and it just looks like an incredible event. So congratulations to the winners of the Athens Marathon.
And we've got some breaking news because we actually have a reporter on the ground in Athens who ran the race. And Tara, you've got her race report here. So.
Yeah, so one of our friends, Lynette, she's a absolute gun. She's this is her 11th marathon. And just to let it be known that this was actually the 40th authentic Athens Marathon, which is really, really weird because it's been going for, well, it feels like a lot longer. So
it's really the 41st marathon.
Yes. But anyway, so this is her exact words coming from her. So she said, Athens run and done. Tough day, but consistent training would have helped. Was perfect conditions up until we started, then it was hot. Few things. Crowd was great in a couple of towns and coming into Athens City, but for the most part, it's fairly quiet and all on the main road. I've never seen so many males peeing by the side of the road before, and I've done some trail runner ultras. It was bizarre. The Greek police and armed forces must have had an entrance level for attractiveness. It's very high. This is coming from a female point of view, obviously. No toilet paper in the portaloos. That was annoying when people were peeing all over the seats. The number of plastic bottles used was insane. There was no cups until later in the race for Coke and Hydrolate, and nobody wants to drink a whole 600 mils at each time. So you will remember in London Marathon, guys, we had the little Buxton bottles that held probably, 200 mils or so? Just able to be held in your hand. It was perfect. Whereas it sounds like they were given a whole 600 ml bottle.
Wow.
There's no environmentally friendly policies there. Coming into the stadium was great, although probably not a run I would encourage friends to do unless they really want to do that authentic original marathon. Athens is a beautiful city, and I would definitely recommend a visit to it. She said it started the marathon in the arena, and the track was filled with hundreds of runners warming up. Most significant landmark was a diversion in the first couple of kilometres at the tomb of the unknown soldier. But other than that, it was mostly along the highway.
Interesting.
So that's another one that Travelling Fit organise.
So if you are interested in doing it, you can reach out to Travelling Fit, and there's sales@travellingfit.com email address, and they'll give you all the details for next year's race. Sounds like an interesting race. I still probably want to do it just because it's the authentic one, just to tick it off. But listening to that and listening to some of the other reports, the heat, the people, the run itself is just running on a highway, not much to look at. Who knows? But, you got to do it.
That's the joy of traveling for running, though. You get to learn different things and see different things. So I'll still want to.
Yeah, it's still probably on my bucket list. And, at the end of the day, you can't fault the weather. I mean, that's one thing you don't have. And it's and ultimately what they're attempting to do is you follow the same course that the dude took back in whenever. And that's it, Philippity.
Not the patience.
Was the highway, maybe that was where they created the highway, I don't know, but it still seems like something that you'd want to do. But and just the last little bit of news, we've got the Havana, Cuba marathon running this weekend. Now this is actually one that looks really vibrant and colorful. Most of it's along the waterfront there. I'm not sure how the travel is nowadays, because I was aware that while the previous president of the United States had a travel ban on Cuba, and if you had been to Cuba, you couldn't then go to the United States. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but I do know that travel can be quite tricky into Cuba, but it looks like a great marathon to do, and very unique, very, very unique. So,
no, that looks good. I think those restrictions have been eased quite a bit, but I'm not sure. Again, you'd need to look at someone like Travelling Fit or somebody else to understand the travel requirements getting in there. But yeah. All right. So that's the news for the week. So we're going to be turning up the dial a little bit now, and we're going to start talking about running in the heat. So I'm going to kick things off, and then we'll just go into sort of a general discussion, I think. But for me, running in the heat, there's sort of three things you think about. There's a pre-run preparation before, you go out for your run. There's obviously the on-the-run component, and then there's obviously then after that, the post-run recovery period. But before we talk about anything to do with running in the heat, I just want to put a little bit of information out there, I guess, for our listeners. One is any advice that we give tonight is just our personal experience. None of us are doctors. We're just talking shit about running based on what works for us. So if you do struggle running in the heat, or you suffer anything that may be a medical issue, such as a kidney issue or heart or liver issues, you really should go and consult a GP before you start pushing yourself and exerting energy running in the heat. So don't listen to us. Listen to us, take some of our information in, but definitely go and talk to your GP before you do that. Also, it's important to understand that hydration is a good thing when you're running, but too much water can be just as bad as too little water, especially when you're running. We've talked about it in the past about hyponatremia, which is when you have too much water, it flushes out all the nutrients out of your body and your electrolytes. And both hyponatremia and heat stroke, which is when you're starting to get dehydrated, can be fatal and can lead to obviously organ failure. So again, you need to be careful with this stuff. We are not experts in this field, but we're only telling you some tips and tricks that work for us and that we think you need to be careful of. So on that note, I just want to talk about pre-run preparation, guys. So what does it look like for you guys? Tara, Tony, I'm going to pass it over to you, but what are some of the things you might do around preparing yourself for a run in the days or even the morning of before you go for a run?
Yeah, so look, I always make sure that the day prior to running, especially if I know it's going to be a warm day on my long runs, I will always ensure that I've well hydrated. So that ensures, like, I normally will drink about maybe 1.5 to 2 liters of water a day. I'll try and up that by at least half a liter. I ensure that I don't drink any alcohol the day prior as well. And I'll always have a banana prior to running. And I know I talk about bananas a lot, but they're really good for the potassium levels. They're good to keep everything in there. They're good for the electrolytes and everything like that for you. So I am very, very cautious not to have salty foods the day before. Anything that's going to dehydrate me more than it needs to, I'd stay away from. And try not to exert myself, I guess, by doing 6 hours of gardening out in the heat if I'm going to be running a long run the next day.
Are you looking at me? That's what I do. But yeah, that's the big thing is you've got to build the hydration levels up, and in preparation for that run to have your cells in your body well hydrated and your stores there, so that when you start running, you've got hydration and liquid in your body. What about you, Tony?
That whole concept of what works for you. So I'm like Tara, and Sharon is the same. We drink water every day anyway, so that we maintain a fluid level. But moving into a long run weekend or a race weekend will add to our normal fluid intake, like a drink like Noon, which is hydration. The one I'm actually drinking at the moment is one that I've just heard of from the United States called Scratch. So I just thought I'd share it on air.
How does it taste?
It's not bad. It's not bad. I've got the lemon lime, so there's a lot of good content coming out around Scratch at the moment. So, but yeah, normally those couple of days before we just increase, not by a lot, but we, just have a bottle of Noon or a bottle of Scratch or something else that's going to help you keep your hydration.
Yep.
And then on the so as we're building some additional hydration. We used to hear the word water loading all the time when shows like Big Brother were on, and people would water load so that if they had immunity, so their scales would go through the roof, and then the next week they'd get rid of all that water, so they'd have this massive weight loss. But ultimately that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to give your body a little bit of extra hydration that's going to help you in whatever it is that you're planning to do over that, whether it's a long run or whether it's a race day.
Yeah, and again, being very careful not to overhydrate yourself with water. So as you're saying with electrolytes, it's really, really good. I use a product called Revies. And now Revies make caffeine strips, but they also make an electrolyte drink as well. And it's amazing. It's very, very neutral. It's wonderful stuff. So big shout out to Revies. But they do a really, really good hydration drink pre and post and during. Yeah.
And what about food?
Once again, those drinks that we talk about we talk about them because they work for us. So
that's right. They don't always work for everybody.
And there's so many on the market that you can really become overwhelmed. But just try one and see if it works for you. And if it works for you, that's awesome. Stay with it. And then when you feel brave enough, try another brand or another flavor or something, because I think it is important that you get used to whatever it is that you're going to be using to help with your hydration.
Yep. And I guess, guys, it's the same for food as well. Obviously, you need to eat enough food to fuel yourself for those longer runs, and you're probably going to exert a lot more energy, so you probably need to eat a little bit more food. But again, we typically wouldn't eat a lot of salty foods or fatty foods in the day beforehand. Generally proteins, vegetables, lighter foods, but foods that don't have that dehydrating component to them. Yeah.
I have been known to have some fatty foods and some salty foods before a 5K. But certainly nothing.
5K's all right though.
Nothing longer and nothing. You've got to look after what you eat. So
Yeah. And clothing wise, guys, beforehand, what are you
Or
typically,
during?
or getting ready to go out for your run? What are you sort of thinking when you're getting ready to run?
Yeah, so I always do a flat lay the night before because I like to get up really early to make sure I'm out there before the heat of the day hits too hard as well. So don't run during the middle of the day. That's just crazy. Try and do it as late in the afternoon or in the evening or as early in the morning as you can, especially when the humidity's high and the sun is beating down on you. I will always make sure that I've got a hat, sunglasses, a t-shirt is preferable over a singlet. However, I will always wear a singlet because I'm just comfort. But I always sunscreen, 50 plus sunscreen, and it just gets pretty much dumped from one end of the head to the end of the body.
Not from above the eyes. I tend to you don't want it sweating into your eyes.
Yeah.
And moisture wicking, I presume. Clothing, that's pretty much standard nowadays.
Yeah, I stay away from cotton. It's just good for chafing. And Body Glide. Body Glide is my go-to for non-chafing with the humidity and the heat. I mean, look, there's lots of products on the market. I think there's Squirrel's Nut Butter. There's so many other ones. But, yeah, Body Glide's my go-to.
Yeah. And support that 3,000,000%, because there's nothing worse than chafed nipples or bleeding nipples, which can often happen to us blokes, especially because we normally just have our shirt and our t-shirts on. So there is a chain of thought around lighter colored clothing, of course, and that helps you. And there's also a chain of thought for men, especially when it comes to that chafing of the nipples, that sort of thing, to wear a shirt that's a little bit maybe tighter than what they normally would. So now, in saying that, I don't subscribe to that. My shirts are baggy because I'm pretty certain that so many people out there would not want to see a tight, slim-fitting shirt on a body like me. But yeah, there is some thought that maybe the tighter the shirt helps eliminate some of that chafing. But I can't speak to that from personal experience.
I know one of our good friends, Lucia, she runs with a cool towel around her neck as well. So she will wet that down and run with it around her neck to keep her cool. We always have hydration on us, even if it's going to be in a place where we're familiar with where the water stops are. We carry water all the time, whether it be for anything pretty much over a 10K. In summer, we will always carry hydration with us at all times because you just never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, and it's handy because you got them water you can splash yourself with in the face if need be. And as you say, we carry also those wet towels, those cool towels, and you just wet them down a little bit, shake them, and you get a nice cool towel to help yourself with when you're going as well. So they're good things to have. And I guess the last thing around pre-planning, it's coming down to just choosing your route and acclimatizing to the area that you're running in. So, it's one of the things that hits me from my earlier studies that I used to, when I was younger and I did a bit of uni and things, was when Americans and Australians and other countries go into battle, particularly in hot climates, they'll tend to arrive a week or two beforehand and just put their troops down on the ground and tell them to do nothing other than just sit there on the ground, maybe do some minor tasks or whatever. But it's largely just to get them acclimatized before they go into battle. And it's a bit the same if you're traveling. You don't want to get off the plane after coming from a cold climate and then the very next day going and running in the heat. You want to try and avoid that and give yourself a couple of days to acclimatize to the heat and just get used to it. And then I guess the other one is when you're doing your route planning, probably looking for shadier routes is a good thing. It's amazing how when you run and you come across a shady patch, it might only be 10 meters that you run through in shade, but it just feels cooler and better for that little bit of time, and it gives you enough energy to keep going. But definitely find an indoor or a shadier spot, or maybe even an indoor place to go running.
Yeah, it was interesting that you mentioned that, Tim, because during Berlin, as you know, Berlin got hotter as the day went on during the marathon. And, your normal thing is to try and stay in the middle of the road so you're not moving too far off that 42.2k measurement. But there are a lot of streets there where the middle of the road was baked in sunshine, and over on the side of the road there was just really long portions of shade, whether it be through trees or whether it be through buildings. And we were in the middle of the road, then all of a sudden the brain kicks in and says, let's go to the shade. And it was noticeable. It was really noticeable. It was like 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees cooler running in the shade than what it was out in the middle of the road. So that's a really good point you make.
Yeah, we found that same thing in Berlin. We were running in the shade of the buildings.
We were making beelines for all the shady spots. It's like, don't worry about the distance. We just want the shade.
It definitely helps.
Yep.
And if I go back to if I put my safety training on, I guess with risk management, you always try to eliminate things first. So try to eliminate running in the heat. If you can't eliminate it, then try and isolate yourself to somewhere where you can run in a cooler environment or where you're a bit shadier. So definitely do those things. Now, what about when we're on the run? So we've done all our pre-planning. Now we're heading out to do our run. What are some of the tips and tricks for running in the heat, guys?
I always slow down.
Yep.
I slow right down. I don't see the point in overheating my body by going any faster. So my long run, well, it doesn't matter which run it is. I can do park run in, 27 minutes in winter, and I'll sit around about 30 to 35 in summer, depending on the day and which course I'm on. I always run slower. I know I probably need to just get it over and done with, but I find if I overheat my body, there's no point. So
it's interesting though. I don't know, Tony, how much you've trained through summer for a March, April, or you probably did it last year for Boston, an April marathon. But coming out of the heat and into a cooler environment, you tend to just find this extra endurance about you because you've been toughened up through the heat. And we found that a number of times when we train through summer, our early winter form of our running is really strong and really good. We're running quick times.
Yeah, we did the full training leading into Tokyo 2020, as you would have done. So that was our first experience of trying to do long runs in, Christmas period. And we learned
that was a very hot year.
38-degree runs.
And learned so much from that. So, and we just got better. And there's nothing better than hearing that alarm go off at 4 a.m. or 3:30 a.m. and get you out of bed and away you go. And it is still hot here in Queensland at that time of morning. So. But you escaping the sun as much as possible. Like the sun's now up in Queensland just past 4 a little bit. So it really does become a challenge trying to find out when you can run. But I guess when it comes to on the run for us, we don't carry water. We don't do the camelbacks or all those things at all. You've heard me talk about our compass runs, and that's our major strategy. And if it's a really, really hot day, we would just, instead of doing a 5K loop and come back to the car for our drinks, we'd do a 3K loop. So that we're trying to keep it. And once again, like Tara says, it may not necessarily be our ideal race experience, but we're not going to put ourselves in danger. We also make sure that on every loop of the compass run, we know where the water is and we know when we're coming up to it. So, because that plays in with your nutrition, and because we always want to take our nutrition prior to taking a drink to wash it down. So that's our major strategy, I guess. But like before with the clothing, we're confident that we're dressed for the weather. We've got a hat on, etc., etc. So, but and in our compass, we will always have things like, the Gatorades of the world and some electrolyte drinks, as well as just chilled water, so that we get a choice, just like you would on race day.
And the electrolytes are really, really important because it replaces those lost salts and minerals that you lose with sweat. And I don't know about anyone else, but I know that and I know Tim does, but after a really long run, you look at your hat and it's actually white if you're wearing a dark coloured hat, or you can feel it on your face, that salty grittiness. So if you're replacing those natural body minerals that you're losing, as you're losing them, so much more the better as well, because just water itself is not going to cut it for you.
So roughly, Tara, and I know the answer, but how often do you do your electrolytes? Is it sort of every time you want to drink, or is it like every second?
Yeah, no, I don't do my electrolytes every time. I'll usually just drink water, and then I'll have an electrolyte drink and then have a sip of water. So it's usually every second drink that I'm doing it. It depends entirely on how hot it is. But, yeah, I try and maintain probably about 500 mils of electrolytes for a 21K run. So, and then I go through about 1.5 litres of water. So, yeah, I am like a camel, though. I do drink a lot of water when I'm running, and Tim's always at me, "You're drinking too much water," because I have suffered from hyponatremia before, and it's not pleasant. So, yeah.
And I guess the other one is around sweat levels, monitoring your sweat levels, knowing that, and being conscious and alert to your body and what it's doing. So one of the things of heat exhaustion, heat stroke, is when you stop sweating. So the moment you stop sweating is usually the moment you're dehydrated and you're about to go into heat stroke. So constantly monitoring your sweating, keeping an eye on it. If you're not sweating, or you're not sweating that much and you're starting to dry up, drink more water.
Well, it's probably already too late by that
it's probably
stage.
already too late.
You probably need to just stop your run and rest up. But you need to be sweating, and if you're not sweating, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, Tony, I guess you're familiar with this one, is around cramping as well, and muscle cramps, which are quite common again when you're becoming exhausted and affected by the heat as well. So again, your pickle juice that you promote so much is something that becomes quite common as well.
Yeah, and it's always interesting, Tim, early stages of every football season and towards the latter stages, you see all the players out in the field, all of a sudden they're more prone to cramp in the hotter periods of the year than what they are traditionally in the June, July, August type period. So cramping is real, and there's a number of ways that people can cover that. Salt tablets, electrolytes. Personally, I like the pickle juice, but pickle juice is only good after you've started to cramp. So it's about how you try and prevent the cramp, I think, is more important. And you do that with electrolytes and probably salt tablets more than anything else.
Yeah. We take a daily dose of magnesium as well, Tara and I. Magnesium helps stop muscle cramping. So we take a daily dose of that, and we don't typically get a lot of cramping in our legs when we're running because of that magnesium. So
yeah. Whereas I've got legs that go out in sympathy with the other. With my ankle the way it is, it's been funny because I've been getting night cramps on the other calf. It's like it's saying, hey, and I haven't even done anything to sort of get the cramp. You're just lying there, and all of a sudden it'll pop up. It's like
don't forget about me. I'm sore too.
The left leg is saying, hey, I'm still here. I'm just, don't give all your attention to that other leg, So,
bit of jealousy, sibling rivalry.
And I think, in accordance with my tip last week, it's probably a good idea to break up your training. So we're not talking. We keep saying slow down in summer, take it easier, but having moments where you can break up the run a little bit or change your strategies to maybe do 2 shorter runs in a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, rather than one long run might be an option. Yeah. It might be an option to, do some more treadmill work during the day where you're inside in a controlled environment. I know you don't like the treadmill, Tony, but we've got a whole episode on that coming up next week around the treadmills. So
I can't wait.
Look a bit more enthusiastic there.
But definitely look at that. Be smarter with how you're training. Slow it down. focus on maybe shorter speed sessions if you're doing them rather than longer speed sessions.
And I know you run with Sharon, and Tim and I run together as well, especially in the heat of summer. If possible, try and run with somebody just so that they can keep an eye on things and make sure that you're going okay, because it's very easy to lose focus when you've got heat stroke and you start going all over the shop. I mean, we saw the guy at the Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast where he hit the ground really, really hard on the bridge. He was probably, about
38 kilometres or 39
kilometres, and he just couldn't get back up again. And that was a lot of that was heat. So if you can have somebody with you watching you and your motions, Tim's always checking to make sure I'm sweating and that I'm taking in fluids and all of that. But it is a good idea if you can run with somebody as well, just to make sure you're safe, especially if you're out on the trails.
Yeah. And there's good things you can do with your watch. So your Garmin watches, and I know a lot of the other smartwatches do it as well, they have an emergency alert function. So if you stop moving for, 3 seconds or 5 seconds, it then automatically dials an emergency contact number on your phone, gives them your position. There's other apps like Life 360 and others that can be used to track you as well. So it's an important thing to also just watch out for your own personal safety, as Tara says.
Very much so.
That's the on the run bit. Any other on the run stuff, guys? Or
no? I think if you start seeing Elvis Presley running beside you, or Jesus Christ, or you've probably gone a little bit too far, and you're probably in the first stages of delusion created from dehydration. So that might be a sign also, just to pull yourself up. And
if you start feeling dizzy, just ease it back. Just listen to your body. That's the most important thing. Don't push it. We're not playing for sheep stations. We're not out there to all run for the Olympics or anything like that. We just have to run, and we want to continue to run on a long-term basis.
You're not betting your life on your run, that's for sure. So, yeah. So post-run recovery, what do we do, Tara?
Well, I love to come home and jump straight into the swimming pool, which I know you're not supposed to, but I love it. I just love getting into the swimming pool, and I'll do a few laps, and then I'll do my stretches in the swimming pool. And it's actually really, really nice because it's load bearing has been taken off you. I've got a step, and it's just the right level for my legs to, put up, and I can stretch everything out nice and easily.
Can I just say the number one dot point that I put on the run sheet tonight was give your body time to cool down.
Because
I'm saying just straight in the swimming pool.
And I will support that. So Tara, you've probably driven home in an air conditioned car you've probably given your body time to cool down.
Absolutely, I should say that. Like, we don't do our runs around the streets. If I'm doing it around the streets, I would be walking it out first.
So the last thing you'd want to be doing is taking your body on that sudden shift of temperature.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've taken in a lot of fluids. I've usually taken in a whole nother 500 or 600 mils of fluids on the travel home, usually of an electrolyte, sugar-free electrolyte, and then I'll just jump straight in the pool and stretch out in there. But I will do my laps as well, so I'll stretch the arms and, I'll keep that movement going. It's not just I get in the pool and sit there with a glass of wine or anything, as much as I'd like to. Don't look at me like that.
It's
early in the morning when I finish. It's 8:30. It's way too early for wine. Maybe
5
a beer.
o'clock somewhere. So give your body time to cool down. And when I was playing footy back in my younger days, I was stupid enough to go in and jump straight in under a cold shower one really, really hot day, and it's not pretty. My body started shaking and convulsing, and I was pretty clued in that I knew that when stuff started to happen to me that I got out of the shower, and it could have been incredibly dangerous. So
and I think the other thing on that point is drink water afterwards, but not cold water. We all feel like we need a really cold drink after we've gone for a long run. The cold drink doesn't actually help you. It actually is worse for you.
It overheats you.
Yeah, it can be can be bad. So just drink cool water. It doesn't have to be tap water, or it doesn't have to be warm water, but just cool water, and then slowly keep just drinking in little bits to bring it back up to your hydration levels. And just watch your urine levels. They'll go from browny yellow to golden yellow to pale yellow to clear. And obviously you're looking for that pale yellow to show that you're hydrated. So keep an eye on your urine colours.
And as Tim said, just slowly with the rehydration at the end of it, because you can vomit it all back up again. And I've seen numerous athletes where they're like, I just need water. They drink it all in, and then it all just comes straight back out again. So
you can have some electrolyte too, but water's probably the better one at this stage. You've already burned up all the salts, and you need to reintroduce it again slowly. But probably water is the more effective one of hydrating, and it's better to be hydrated first and then bring your electrolytes back up. It's important to stretch as well afterwards, and make sure you do stretch out. Just because you're feeling warm and you're feeling good, and you gradually cool down, your muscles still need to be stretched and still need to recover out as they normally would. And I guess the last bit of advice that I'll give to people is get sleep. You're going to be more fatigued than you probably normally are when you're running in the heat. So get some extra sleep. Go to bed an hour earlier. Sleep in a little bit longer if you can. It will drain you, and it'll be draining you for a couple of days if you're not used to it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I normally put ice packs on my calves once I've had a shower and cleaned up after a run.
Yeah.
Is that not with cramping, Tony?
Well, that's just because I've got dodgy calves. But it always helps me to cool down a little bit more anyway, and keeps me pretty much in a steady position there while I've, come out of the run, and it just gives me that chance to review, refresh, all that stuff that's going on. So
absolutely. Oh, look, I would just want to add one more thing while we're running. One of my really good friends, SJ, she suggested this to me, and it's actually putting water on your wrists, so the inside of your wrists when you're running. So when you're on a race, take your water, have a sip of it, don't throw out the rest of it, pour it onto your wrists and your hands. Yep, the inside of your wrists. And it actually cools you down really well, like really, really well.
And just makes you feel a bit cleaner and less sticky, and just resets you a little bit as well.
So that's another little tip is
good tip.
The extra water from your cup on the inside of the wrists while you're running. Yeah.
Good tip.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for that, guys. That's what we've talked about tonight. Is there's running in the heat, as we said. It can be a little bit tricky if you're not used to it, but it can be very fun and enjoyable. You just need to be smart and recognize that you need to slow things down a little bit. The good news, as I said earlier on, is that if you are running a reasonably consistent program through the summer months, you'll generally come back in autumn and winter a lot fitter and a lot stronger and faster, is generally the way it goes. So that's really cool. So thanks for that information, guys, and that talk just now. Now, I did promise all of our listeners something a little extra tonight and a little bit different on this episode. So we've got a little bit of time up our sleeves, not much, but a little bit of time. And it's occurred to me during the week that we haven't really had our listeners hear from us around what our fast six are when we ask our special guests to do a fast six. So what I'm going to do is we're going to all do our own fast six tonight. So I'm going to kick things off, and I'm going to ask Tony his fast six. And then I'll get Tony, because it's usually your episode, your part of the episode every week, to ask the fast six. I'm going to get you to ask the fast six as well. But instead of six, I'm going to ask a seventh question as well, which I think is important. So,
okay.
All right. So, Tony, are you ready? Are you ready for the fast six? All right.
Yeah.
Podcasts or music?
Usually podcasts.
Best running advice given to you?
One foot in front of the other.
What advice would you give to someone starting out?
Start slowly and don't look at other people's results or what they're doing. It's all about you.
Yep. Uphill or downhill?
I'm saying downhill every day.
Gels or blocks?
Blocks.
Blocks. And favourite shoes to run in?
Saucony Tempest.
Saucony Tempest. And the seventh question, what is your favourite running event that you've done to date?
I'm going to say New York, but geez, London was close, and so was Chicago. So,
That's all right. You have to have
New York.
3 favorites. New York.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, let's do this. So, Tim, I'm going to ask Tara first. So, Tara, you ready?
Yep.
So, podcast or music?
Music.
Best running advice ever given to you?
Don't compare yourself to anyone else.
What advice would you give to someone starting out?
Don't compare yourself to somebody else. No, take your time. Listen to your body.
Uphill, downhill?
Down.
Gels or blocks?
Blocks.
Favorite shoes to run in?
Brooks Ghosts.
Favorite running event done?
Can I have 2?
Yeah.
Okay. So my favorite trail event is Motatapu Marathon in New Zealand, South Island, running for Crown Range down into Arrowtown. Absolutely stunning, amazing creek crossings, river crossings. And for road marathons, I am not going to pick a major. I'm actually going to say the Dopey Marathon because you get to stop for characters and it's fun. You get to see the world. And where else do you get to run with monkeys beside you?
Hey, I'm not a monkey.
I was just about to say, Tara,
Animal Kingdom.
you run with a character the whole, just about every time. So
maybe that's why I like it so much. It just reminds me of my everyday. Yes.
All right, well done, Tim. Your turn. Podcast or music?
Music.
Best running advice given to you?
When running uphill, shorten the stride and focus on swinging your arms.
What advice would you give to someone starting out?
Slow and steady.
Uphill or downhill?
I like uphill.
Gels or blocks?
Blocks.
Favorite shoes to run in?
Brooks Ghosts.
Favorite running event?
Oh, it must be a Kiwi thing. I'm not a Kiwi, but I really love the Queenstown Marathon, and that's on this weekend as well in New Zealand. So beautiful little run. It starts out at Arrowtown, and you run on a combination of roads, and it's not trail. Well, it's trail, but it's decomposed granite, so it's quite a nice trail to shuffle in on. Run around a couple of lakes and finish in the middle of Queenstown. Spectacular.
And I think we can all probably add in there that
Outback
Marathon for all of us. I think we can all add that one in as one of our favorites.
It's
a special.
It's unique. So, all right. So now that we've done that, and thanks, Tim, for doing that as a special treat for our viewers. I hope they enjoyed that. But what we look forward to every week, and something that I often dread every week, is Tim's tip. And
you only dread it because you've got to put 3 bullet points onto an Instagram post.
Yeah.
All
anyway, what do you got for us?
This one is a heat-related one. It's around sunscreen and skin cancer this week. So, personal experience, I've had some skin cancers chopped out of my nose previously. It required plastic surgery. It's not fun. So it is important to cover up. Use a sports 50 plus sunscreen, as I said earlier on, generally from the eyes down, over the nose, over the tops of the ears, neck, shoulders, anywhere where you've got exposed skin. Obviously, you don't like to put it above the eyes. It sweats in there. So I wear a good hat that sits over the top of my face and my nose just on the hat thing, I think I've said this before, but it is amazing when I run overseas at how few people actually wear hats overseas. It's crazy. But Aussies, you need to wear hats. Sunglasses as well. Important that you get a regular skin check from your GP or from a skin cancer clinic every 6 to 12 months. And if you've got any spots, don't mess around with it. Get in there, get those spots checked. They're likely to be nothing, but occasionally there will be one that turns nasty and it becomes a skin cancer. When skin cancers hit and they turn into melanoma, they become very aggressive and you don't have a lot of time to react, and they can be quite fatal. They're the nastiest of the cancers because they just spread rapidly. So do the right thing, cover up when you're out in the sun, and you'll be right.
Well done.
All right, so that's that. I'm now got to say, what do I have to say here? So we are starting to get to the end of this episode. So before we do that, Tara, what's coming up on next week's episode?
Oh, next week. Okay, so thanks, Tim. Following on from this week's topic, we've got next week, we're talking about the treadmill, which I know Tony just absolutely hates, but I love. We will give you some tips and tricks on hopefully taking the dread out of the treadmill. So if you feel like you aren't going anywhere on a treadmill, this is the episode for you.
Did you get that?
Another one of Tim's puns.
Why does it give them to me to say? Oh, God.
So you're not going anywhere.
And just for the viewers and listeners, I probably won't be contributing too much to next week's episode. So anyway.
You will. So that ends our seasonally hot show tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Flying Runner. And if you did enjoy this podcast, please tell your friends. Please like and subscribe wherever you listened or watched this episode. Video of this episode will be available at Spotify and YouTube, and audio will be available on Apple, Amazon, and Google Podcasts, as well as most other popular podcast platforms. So farewell tonight, Tony and Tara. And remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll catch up on the next episode. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.